A couple weeks ago, I uploaded a video showing you my full makeup collection. I did a whole inventory, showed you every piece of makeup in every category, and then added it all up at the end to give you guys a sense of what my collection looks like as a small YouTuber who tries to keep a pretty edited makeup collection. You all loved that video so much, so I thought I would do kind of a little twist on that and show you my pre-YouTube collection. Essentially, what I've done here is go through and think back to the time right before I started this YouTube channel. So like right before, I'm talking the month beforehand. What did I own in terms of makeup at that stage? And I think you guys will be really surprised how big of a difference there is between my pre-YouTube and current YouTube makeup collections. Now, of course, this doesn't reflect like every piece of makeup I've ever tried in my lifetime, right? Like this is just what I had as a collection at the exact moment before starting YouTube. Just want to be clear about that. We are going to go in order of how I apply these on my face most often. So starting out here with primers, I only owned one primer and it was the NYX Angel Veil primer. And I actually only owned this because I was prepping to do my own makeup for my wedding. So I would not have bought this, I don't think, if I wasn't specifically in the market for a pore filling primer because I wanted it for my wedding. So I had one primer. I also had one concealer and it was the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. And then I had two foundations and I don't have either of them anymore. The first was the Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Tint. Absolutely love that product, 100% still recommend it, but it expired, so I got rid of it. The other was actually the Makeup Forever Ultra HD foundation, which again was a purchase exclusively because I had my wedding coming up. I was perfectly happy with just the Neutrogena on like a regular basis as my only foundation, and I just knew that I needed something that was less dewy, more long lasting, and a little bit higher coverage for my wedding, so I purchased the Makeup Forever, but if it hadn't been for that wedding, I definitely would have only had one foundation. Interestingly enough, I owned two face powders, which is very weird because it's one of the steps that I do least frequently. I mean, I do always powder under my eyes on top of my concealer, so it makes sense that I had some sort of powder, but the fact that I had two as someone with dry skin who doesn't like powdering my face is pretty weird. But I had my Physicians Formula Healthy Powder and I had my Maybelline Fit Me Loose Powder. And honestly, if I'm thinking back to like why I have both of these, I think it's because I was not super happy with the Physicians Formula and I wanted to try out a loose setting powder for the first time in my life actually. And so I went for the Maybelline, which was like the cheapest thing I could find at the drugstore. And I love this Maybelline way more than the Physicians Formula, but interesting to me, just an interesting reflection to think about the fact that I owned two powders as someone who doesn't really powder my face. I had one bronzer and I don't have it anymore. It was an Ulta matte pressed powder bronzer, just really standard. And then I bought this e.l.f. Forever Sunkissed bronzer probably like a day after starting my YouTube channel. So I kind of had two bronzers because I had my eye on this e.l.f. one for so long, but really truly I had one bronzer when I started my channel. I also had one blush. It was the Essence Satin Touch blush in the shade Satin Love. I still absolutely love this blush. It's still one of my tippy top favorites. And I owned zero highlighters, which was interesting to me to like look back on. I didn't have a single highlighter in my collection. I didn't feel the need to have it. I generally use that Neutrogena foundation and it was very dewy and hydrating. So my skin had a really beautiful natural glow and I didn't feel the need to add anything to it. For brows, I had exactly two products. I had my Essence Brow Designer pencil and my NYX Control Freak brow gel. Nothing else. It was a perfect pair. It still is one of my favorite combos for my eyebrows, and that's saying something, I think. I had one mascara open at the time. I had some others that I got as like free gifts with purchase or whatever that were kind of like on standby, but I only had one open and it was the Stila Lights Camera Lashes mascara. Still one of my favorite mascaras to this day. I just think it's really overpriced and you can get the same thing at the drugstore, but I did love it. It was great to have in my collection, but I never had more than one mascara open at a time before YouTube, and now I frequently have more than one mascara open at a time, and that's a very weird change for me because I can't go through them fast enough and they expire before I use them up sometimes, and that frustrates me. For eyeshadow palettes, I had a couple things. I had my ColourPop Going Coconuts palette, which, sorry, I have these shadows somewhere else right now, so ignore that. I had my ColourPop Going Coconuts, and then I had a Stila Eyes Are the Window palette, which I actually loved. It was a gift from my siblings, and it was a really beautiful, cool, and warm tone brown neutral palette. I adored that palette. I really did. I let it go recently, like since starting YouTube, I let it go because I have those shades elsewhere and it was very old. But those were my two eyeshadow palettes. I also owned two single eyeshadows. I owned Bill and Amaze from ColourPop in their Super Shock formula. I still have Amaze. I did declutter Bill. And last up, lips. I owned two lip liners. Both of them were the NYX Slim Lip Pencil formula, and I had the shades Nude Pink and Nude Beige. They were just a really good, like, standard pink and a really good cool tone brown. Covered my bases pretty well, to be honest. I owned two lip glosses. One was the Milani Plumping Lip Gloss in Pink Quartz. The other was the NYX Butter Gloss in Creme Brulee. This is still one of my favorites. This Milani one is kind of like fallen from grace in my collection, but still 100% love the NYX. I had two like tinted lip products. One of them is the Lipstick Queen Trance lipstick, and the other is the Honest Beauty Tinted Lip Balm in Summer Melon. I think I also had a couple lipsticks from Lipstick Queen, but I cannot remember for a fact, and so I'm not counting them. I'm just counting this one that I know I had before I started YouTube. And then I had like one full pigment lipstick, which was my MAC lipstick in the shade Modesty. And again, this was a wedding purchase. I bought this specifically because I knew I was getting married and wanted like my perfect pinky nude for my wedding. So I probably wouldn't have had like a full pigment lipstick like this if it weren't for that. And then very last, I had the Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray. Again, a wedding purchase, honestly, just because I knew I needed something to help my makeup last. Also, in my full collection inventory, I go through all of my brushes and add them up as well. But I tried so hard to go through my brushes and figure out what I had prior to YouTube, and I could not for the life of me remember at all. So I'm skipping that, and I'm sorry if that bums you out. But I know I had like around 10 brushes max. I had almost no brushes. But in terms of items that I'm sure I had exactly 24 items of makeup, and I still own 18 of those today. So that's a pretty good percentage, I'd say, considering the amount of new makeup I've tried over the last like year and handful of months. I feel like it says something that I still am holding on to and using and enjoying 18 out of 24 of those items. I hope you enjoyed this video today. This was a really fun one for me to film because I got to kind of reflect on where I started and where I am now. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love to have you do so before you head out today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.